Hi, Mike Brantley, auctioneer. Discussing today concept of auctioneers working under some sort of license and the administrative arm or regulatory agency requiring those auctioneers to have some kind of bond, or does that same agency require or provide a recovery fund? And so, first of all, what's bonding and how does that work, and what's a recovery fund? Let me explain both here. A bond works where a principal in the arrangement, the auctioneer being the principal, wants to assure the state or the licensing entity that they are going to perform in a certain fashion and not steal money or convert clients' funds into personal funds or pay consignors on time and things like that. The surety is the insurance company. And so the insurance company would issue a bond on behalf of the principal to what's called the obligee. The obligee, the receiver of the obligation, is the state. In a state license situations, the obligee expects the principal auctioneer to buy a bond, pay for a bond, so much a year for $25,000 bond, $10,000 bond, $50,000 bond, whatever it is, from the surety. And the surety names the obligee as the beneficiary of that policy. So that's a common and long-standing way that licensing agencies provide consumers with some protection, is that they require their licensees to have a bond, purchase a bond in favor of the state, and then the state is paid, and those monies can be directed to a client who is harmed in some financial way by an auctioneer. How else can we do it? Well, there's recovery funds. And recovery funds are state-managed funds, typically in a state treasury, denoted as such. This is recovery fund money. Each licensee in a state that licenses auctioneers would put either a portion of their license fee or a fee in addition to their license fee into or designated to the recovery fund. And so maybe you've got thousands of real estate licensees or auctioneers or whatever other occupation that utilizes a recovery fund. And we build up $1 million in the auction recovery fund. And then if there's a claim, there's usually a maximum paid out. Might be we'll only pay out $25,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 or what have you out of those for one claim or by the claim. And then typically, if a claim is made, the licensee's license is likely suspended until that money is paid back into the recovery fund. So the recovery fund, managed by the state, and it's in the state treasury, well, that's another way that we can protect the public, protect consumers who are hiring auctioneers or hiring real estate agents or hiring anybody else that serves as an agent handling other people's money. What are the issues with both of them? Well, private bonding is likely more expensive. If every auctioneer in a jurisdiction has to buy a bond, that total tab is material. And they all have to get their own policies, and there's different insurance companies involved. There's a little consistency in it. There's often confusion of how I get a bond and how I pay for a bond and who provides bonds and things like that. And it seems lately here that licensed states have leaned towards, who have been doing auctioneer licensing for, maybe 30, 40, 50 years, have said, you know what, a state recovery fund might be better, because then the state can manage it. And once there's enough money in there, then the auctioneers don't have to pay any more into the recovery fund because we got enough money in there. There's $1 million in there. So no more money goes in. And in fact, some states that license auctioneers have recovery funds and haven't requested any money from auctioneers for years, for decades, because the money is sitting there. And if any's paid out, it's put back in, recovered if it's recovered. And so the balance stays fairly constant, relieving the auctioneers from having to pay a fee to replenish or bring the balance up to the minimum in a recovery fund situation. Now, an interesting story. I'm leaning towards, and I have always leaned towards, recovery funds are probably a more efficient, simpler way to manage protecting clients from auctioneers or any other licensee converting or stealing or not paying or that kind of stuff. The state of California. Well, the state of California used to license auctioneers. And the tale goes that Gray Davis, the governor at the time, walked into the California licensing agency and said, we've got some financial problems here in the state. We've got money needs that aren't being satisfied, bills that aren't getting paid, and we understand that you have this money in a auctioneer recovery fund. Well, I'm going to take that money, it's in the state treasury, and I'm going to reallocate it to pay some bills here in California. And of course, the licensing agency or the auction commission, if you will, at that time said, "Well, you can't do that, Governor. With all due respect, if we don't have the recovery fund, we're out of compliance with state law. We're going to have to close this whole department down." And what did the governor say? Then close it down because I'm taking the money. So anytime you have money, auctioneers, real estate licensees, other occupations that each licensee puts in some to get the fund started, and that money's designated to benefit that occupation in terms of client claims, you run the risk that the state comes in and says, we're going to take that. We're going to reallocate it. That's what happened in California. We haven't had auctioneer licensing statewide in California since, because they raided the recovery fund. So is there a right answer? Bonding, you couldn't raid the bonding. The state couldn't come in and take that. State can take the recovery fund. Recovery fund's simpler, easier, less financial burden on the licensees. But is the fund always going to be there? So we probably have more questions than answered, but certainly in a licensed state, a regulatory agency, administrative arm, state law should dictate, if there's occupational licensing, auctioneer licensing, that there's some sort of fund that's used to have available for clients, principals in these transactions who have suffered a loss, a financial loss that's discernible, file a claim. Of course, that claim is going to be maxed at some point. I mean, you would likely say that because they could pursue other damages in common pleas court or otherwise. So it's good that some fund is there, whether the auctioneers, in our example, have a private bonding fund or the state provides a fund. I think you have to do one or the other. And which one's better? Well, that's to be determined by your state with hopefully the help of your auctioneer association and active auctioneers in your state who voice an opinion. Mike Brantley, auctioneer. Pleasure to be with you today. Other videos on this same page, others forthcoming. Have a great day and stay safe.